Take the next few seconds and see what you notice about the photographs located on the screen. The area I want you to remember is the diverse nature of the audience. Note the press room has a multitude of people, and the president doesn't know the education level of each person present. The TED Talk presenter, he doesn't know everyone in the room. The sniper team leader knows his Marines but understands that learning issues that may be presented. And finally, the one-room schoolhouse. The picture represents a time when an educator had advanced readers and some who have never touched a book, all in the same class. What does all of this mean? It means that differentiation is not a new concept and should not be looked at as if it is one. This is the differentiated classroom presented by me, Samuel Dean. My thesis statement is differentiation is used on a daily basis as a tool in which teachers need to accept in order to effectively execute and facilitate learning within a classroom. During this presentation, I used various education websites, I read journals of reliable sources, and I used The Differentiated Classroom by Caroline Tomlinson. I also did some personal interviews. Now during this presentation I will have two main points. What is a differentiated classroom? And differentiated classrooms with inclusion. So what is a differentiated classroom? Well, let's hear from the expert, Caroline Tomlinson herself.
I think differentiated instruction actually is just teaching with a child in mind. It suggests that we have a responsibility to teach students content, but also that we have to always bear in mind that we teach that content to students, to human beings, and that not all students will understand it the same way or in the same length of time, make the same connections, need the same support system. So differentiated instruction is a way of thinking about teaching which suggests that we establish very clear learning goals that are very substantial, and then that we teach with an eye on the student so that we're constantly trying to ascertain where the student is relative to where we're going, and then making adjustments as necessary to make sure that all of the students go with us on the learning journey and arrive at the end where they need to be. For that reason, then, differentiation suggests to us that we need to look at those learning goals and ask how we might adjust our teaching in terms of students' varied readiness levels, their particular interests, and their particular modes of learning, so that learning works, so that it fits for each student in the classroom. We often think about students in a classroom as though the class were just one student, and we speak of them as the students like this, the students don't understand this, when in fact it's rare that a particular moment works equally well for all students. And so differentiation asks us to disaggregate the student into individual human beings and to understand what they bring to the classroom in terms of strengths that we can build on and what they bring in terms of needs that we can address to maximize their possibilities for success.
Now that we've heard what a differentiated classroom is from Caroline Tomlinson, what is the definition of differentiation? Well, that varies based on the subject in which it's used. However, they all have the same base for the word. It is a combination of elements that does not always stick together, much as teaching in a differentiated classroom does with students and the learning styles and abilities. If you'll notice on the screen, it says environment, curriculum, and instruction are all linked. Those are hallmarks of a differentiated classroom. And you'll see bullets below that will tell you a little bit more of the things to expect. But one in particular stands out to me. It is success and failures are inevitable. This classroom is a safe place for both. I had an educator, Mrs. Bonnie Cretton, who took a room full of adults and put them in a circle and had them share experiences. And it was a great exercise. And she said she used this in her classroom of 8th, 9th, and 10th graders throughout her education years in order to present a classroom that was just that, a safe place. They would share stories. They would see what they had in common, even though they were all different. And she would do this the first week of class and bring it as a family. So you could have good, bad. Everybody was able to succeed and fail. And this exercise, I believe, would be a wonderful tool for anyone getting ready to go into a differentiated classroom. Now take a couple of seconds and study the chart located on the screen. This came directly from Caroline Tomlinson's book, The Differentiated Classroom. As the chart denotes, the steps to a differentiated classroom is not that foreign to most people, and the language is simple and straightforward. Notice the chart, there are 5 guided principles, 4 different ways to differentiate, and 3 considerations for students. However, there are still some cases that take extra effort in order to complete the process. And although the process is simple on paper, it doesn't always translate to an easy process in the classroom. A multitude of issues arise in classrooms that are beyond the educator's control. One of the issues that arise is in relation to inclusion classes. How do educators deal with inclusion students while trying to differentiate? That is my next point. Differentiating classroom with inclusion. So what is inclusion? Well, in a brief statement according to rymysore.ac.in, quote, students with disabilities are educated alongside with their peers in local community. Therefore, mainstream schools are required to adapt to accommodate a diverse group of students with a variety of needs, end quote. Speaking of the needs of students, in actuality, inclusion students need differentiation. So there is an entire chapter dedicated to inclusion with learning disabled students in sagepub.com. Within this publication, Carol-Ann Tomlinson and other experts are referenced. I suggest you take a look at this if you're going to have inclusion classrooms and try and teach differentiation. Now, most drivers on the road can identify the signs located on the screen. You have a stop sign and a yield sign. However, neither have any words. During the research for this project, I asked several educators the hardest inclusion situation they had faced while in the classroom. The story of an illiterate 8th grader came up, and based on the background of the life they had experienced, it seemed logical. The next question I asked, obviously, was how do you differentiate a lesson plan to accommodate such an extreme case? The educator informed me groups were all assigned positions so they could participate without others knowing their capabilities or disabilities. I would assign him a task and he could handle. An attitude problem was compensation for not being able to perform the tasks, and this was resolved quickly in this classroom. The second thing the educator said they did, quote, my planning period, during lunch or even after school, I'd perform testing so others wouldn't be able to know the problems. And I would read the student aloud and allow them verbal answers back to me to ensure they understood the information. During normal testing hours, though, the student would sit there, still get a test that would look similar to the other students, but would not be used. The third thing the teacher did was participate in a reading program that was set up for him to regain the appropriate reading level. The teacher reported the problem once identified and followed through with showing genuine interest and care for the student. The student ultimately responded and graduated before heading to college and earning a degree. Now I understand that this is an extreme case, but it shows with proper effort, planning, and understanding of the needs of the student in any situation can be overcome. This is even the case as ESL, or English as a Second Language students. All of this sounds wonderful and useful in any situation, so what is the issue? I don't see any. As with any good discussion, this too shall end. And as I end this presentation, I'd like to remind you of the important factors I've discussed. My main points: what is a differentiated classroom, and differentiated classroom with inclusion. Here's where I ask you to do something for yourself and your prospective students. Don't do it all at once, not even every day, or even every other day, but at least once a week. Take a chance and plan differentiation. You may find it will help you and your students connect at a new level. Let me leave you with a quote from Oprah Winfrey. Quote, the essential question is not how busy are you, but what are you busy at? This has been Sam Dean in the Differentiated Classroom. Thank you.